Good evening, everybody. How we doing? Welcome to the stream for this week. Hope you've had a good start of the week so far. Welcome, Mr. Chicken Wings. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing all right. I'm not doing too bad, I must say. It's just the end of daylight savings in Melbourne, so for those who are viewing the stream, it might be a little earlier than usual, but it's the exact same time for us. I hate daylight savings time. The state that I'm originally from in Australia voted against it several times, but the state I am in now still has daylight savings time, so as a terrible West Australian, I don't enjoy it all that much, but I'm learning to adapt. But as you might notice, I'm looking a little bit special tonight, wearing a button-up shirt, which we don't normally do, and the reason for that is because it's a very special time of year. And it's a time of year where there's a lot of celebration, because a lot of things are happening that a lot of people get excited about, and the thing that we're celebrating is, of course, the release of a new Maya. Maya 2024 has just dropped this week with a bunch of new changes, so I thought I'd look the part, maybe dress up a little bit. Thought about wearing a tie, and then I realized I haven't worn a tie in about, since probably before the pandemic started, so I can't actually remember how to tie one, so I opted not to do that. But hey, we're looking fine enough for looking at a new version of Maya. So there's been some cool additions in this version, which I'm interested in looking at, in particular the multiple skin cluster workflow, which we have talked about on stream before. It is actually possible in current versions or earlier versions of Maya. There's just not been a native way to do it. You have to sort of like manually reconnect deformers yourself. So I'm interested in checking out that stuff. There's also a few new modeling tools, which I think will be quite useful to rigging workflows. I haven't really looked at this in too much detail. I've been very busy with work for the past week, so much so that I was also working on the weekend to get stuff done. And I was wanting to check out the Maya 2024 stuff then, but instead we're doing that now, so everybody can share in the goodness. But anyway, enough of that. Let's actually head over and take a look at the new Maya interface for the first time. Which, I mean, to no surprise, is completely the same as previous versions, really. I think the only thing that's different, and to be honest, I haven't really used 2023 all that much, but this timeline, this is looking fresh. This is looking fly. I do have my earlier version, Maya 2022, open as well, because I'll probably be going back and forth because I haven't ported all my tools and stuff over. So if I'm wanting to bring in models or whatever, I thought it was prudent to have this open at the same time. But as we kind of toggle between them, you can sort of see the minor differences. I also haven't shifted over my preferences. Everything is like brand new. I don't have my shelf or anything. We're going in fairly vanilla. So with all the standard Maya releases, you get like these little green boxes around everything, which you can toggle off. They basically let you know that something new is going on. In the case of what we got here, I believe the Make Live tool now allows multiple objects to be added. So you're not just restricted to one, which is really cool. And we got some new stuff with retopologize. What we might do, actually, I've got on another screen, I've got some of the new updates here. So this is like the information page that's on the Maya website. So I believe Christoph, he posted these on Twitter last week. I think this is actually his model. I think we were talking about maybe using this for a rigging challenge at some point as well, but it might not be out there anymore if Autodesk has picked it up. But yeah, let's go through and actually get a broad overview of what some of the updates are first, and then we can kind of look at them in a bit more detail. I believe the first thing that they've talked about is retopologize. And if you've never used retopologize before, this is actually a really handy tool if you're working with scanned characters and you don't have any sort of properly modeling retopologized character. So generally, if you're not really familiar with how like games or film workflows go, is you'll get a scan or a high resolution version of a character, normally like a ZBrush sculpt or something like that, that's maybe been imported in from scan data or something like that. If it's a game, it's probably been sculpted itself. But more often than not, they'll be focused on sort of like getting the details done first, and retopology isn't really on the cards. And if you're coming in early as a rigger, generally you want something that's a bit easier to work with than a bunch of like triangle mess, so the retopologize tool has actually made some pretty good leaps and bounds in the last 2 releases. I think it came in Maya 2022. It was pretty slow. 2023 increased the speed of it. In fact, I think it like increased it pretty significantly. I think I tested it out a while back, and like a character that maybe took like a minute or something prior ended up being done in like 10-20 seconds. So that was a really big improvement. And I think they've done even more work on the tool now. Yeah, it looks like it's got some capacity to feature preserve, which is pretty cool. Provides modelers with different methods to preserve features during the retopologizing process. Following options can be used to preserve areas of detail in the input mesh and guide the resulting flow, which sounds pretty cool. So I guess if you're wanting to sort of like avoid mushifying a mesh as you're working on it, that would be useful for that. So we might take a look at that. Retopologize with symmetry. Now this is going to be very, very useful for rigging, because more often than not, if you are working with a character, you may get sort of like a bandolier kind of like strap through them, and it didn't like have the same effect on both sides. So you can sort of see from this one here, even though that topology may not be completely ideal, the fact that it's symmetrized means that skinning is going to be a lot easier for that. So that's good as well. Pre-mesh checks during retopologize, that's something that's probably pretty handy as well, just to make sure, oh yeah, the next one, keep input mesh after retopologize as well, so you're not going to lose your original mesh. That is a pretty handy option as well. Make live updates. So make live now supports multiple objects, letting you snap to any surfaces that are live. So before you could only use one. If you've ever used like the quad draw workflow with the modeling tools that Maya has, this is really, really useful for that kind of stuff, because you basically just use this mesh to project your modeling onto. So the fact that you can just have multiple in there now is going to be really useful. Name of the first objects displayed in the field, following icon for selected, indicating you have more than one object in your live selection. Hovering over the field allows, field displays a list of all the live surfaces. Oh, cool. When an object is light, automatically assigned a dark green. Yeah, so I think this sounds like it's going to be pretty self-explanatory. Make live quad draw support. You can now use quad draw with multiple live objects, fantastic, and smooth mesh preview meshes, letting you create new simplified geometry on top of complex collections of target meshes. For example, quad draw can now be used to on full characters that are made up of many individual pieces. So just saves you from having to create or combine a mesh yourself every time that you're doing this. Now this one, unsmooth a mesh, this is going to be really, really useful, particularly if you're working with meshes that you've downloaded online and may be particularly high res. This was actually a feature I utilized in, R3DS Wrap. In the newest version of R3DS, for those who don't know, that's the software I use to sort of like wrap one mesh to another, and that's really useful for like transferring skin clusters and joints between characters. So I'd also use that program to do essentially what I think this is supposed to do. It basically allows you to unsmooth the Maya smoothing of a mesh. So when you go, in fact, we can probably show this very quickly for those who don't know. If we just make a polygon primitive, let's go into the modeling workflow, mesh, smooth. We're probably all familiar with this. But basically, if you have a smoothed object, this is going to invert that smoothing, at least hopefully. I know some characters I've downloaded online. If you've watched some of my streams last year, there was like a T-Rex I used. That was like super subdivided. So I went into R3DS to unsubdivide it, so I had a lower resolution one to sort of like start skinning on. But it sounds like this is going to be more Maya native now, which is really, really cool. The new Mesh Unsmooth option allows you to unsubdivide any Catmull Clark smoothed high resolution mesh. So I believe this won't just be limited to stuff that's been done inside Maya. I think as long as it's using the same smoothing subdividing method in other programs, I think you should be able to do this as well. Boolean improvements. Updates introduced in 2023 give modelers more control when adding and editing new input objects for the Boolean stack. So this is something I'm less familiar with. I believe Booleans basically allow you to subtract geometry from others, and that's something that I've been taught like a decade ago that you're supposed to stay away from. But I think they're actually trying to make it more supported now in Maya. Set new defaults for new Boolean objects and things. I think this may play into the new deformer stack workflows with like component tagging and stuff as well. Just from looking at this interface, it's kind of giving me those vibes, but I haven't really played around with it too much. But we could maybe take a look at this. Although if it goes into too much detail, this is probably something that's going to crash Maya fairly easily. But I think Booleans are sort of seen as like a boogeyman for modeling sometimes, especially for riggers, because it's not really retopologizing well when you do them, but perhaps there's some improvements to that as well. Improved interactive performance. Like if you have this stuff sort of be interactive as well, we can update it on the fly. That might be some interesting stuff. New modeling shelves, bidirectional Boolean stuff. Paint vertex color tool updates. Oh, that's cool. So yeah, vertex color tools can be useful. In fact, what was the last thing I used vertex colors for? I think they can be used basically to like highlight certain things or like provide data to other programs and things. I haven't used them much personally, but I have used them in like bigger studio workflows before. Display RGB channels individually on poly objects. Cool. UV editing performance improvements. Yeah, so it sounds like snap support when using move tool plane handles as well. So yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of like smaller improvements as well. So modeling stuff, definitely interested in looking at a few of these, but the other big one is going to be all the additional, well, they list it as character animation improvements, but this is a lot of stuff to do with rigging specifically. So the first one, numeric weight visualization. This is interesting. Because I don't really use the native Maya skinning tool all that much, it's probably going to be less useful. Previously in Maya, there was no way to view exact weights as numbers in the viewport. Now the new weight visualization settings in the Paint Skin Weights tool let you display weight influences numerically, giving you precise ways to see the influences of surrounding joints. I can see this as being pretty useful though, if you just need to sort of like troubleshoot a skin cluster. If you just sort of need to like debug, it's like, oh, I don't know where like a small influence is coming from. I think this could be useful even if you're working with something like NG Skin Tools and you can't like locate it. The other option would be using the component editor. But oh, hey, Rehards, welcome, buddy. How you doing? How you doing? This next one, support for multiple skin clusters. Now, this is the one that's really interesting me. You can now have more than one skin cluster on a single piece of geometry, opening up new possibilities for animators and riggers. Use multiple skin clusters to lay deformation, for example, creating layers of squash and stretch, a layer of kinetic motions, and other for fine details. Also, using multiple skin clusters opens up possibilities for alternative weighting for a variety of needs, both technical and artistic, even exploratory or derived from different techniques such as digital painting and volumetric weighting and so on. So, I think this is probably less exciting if you use something like NG Skin Tools, because layering skin clusters to sort of like keep aspects separate from each other is something that you just use NG Skin Tools for. It allows you to sort of like have all those layer weighting features and just combine them all at the end to export or whatnot. It is nice having this as more of a like native Maya feature. Also, the fact that you can now just like set up the skin clusters without having to do the deformer chaining yourself. I think that's a nice improvement. And I think this is just going to open up this concept to more people. Because, yeah, this is something that can be done in existing Maya, but you sort of have to like develop your own tools to support it. I used it at my previous studio, but we had to set up a bunch of like scripts around it so we could load them on and copy them between meshes and things like that. So there's probably still going to be a bit of like wiggle room for that, or like updating of tools, but it's just nice that this is like a standard feature now. One thing I mentioned on Twitter last week was you can utilize pre-bind matrices in skin clusters. I'll like to talk about that a little bit later and show you how to do it. But this basically allows you to have like a additional layer of joints on a separate skin cluster, which won't move, like they won't deform the skin cluster unless you literally change the attributes on the joint itself. So this is really cool if you like have a really complicated in-depth skin cluster. Then if you wanted to do like a tweak joint, like say you wanted to put, you know, like a control sort of on the bicep, so you could like pull it out or sort of jiggle it or something like that, but you don't want to like go in and change the refined skin cluster you've done. This allows you to sort of like put it on top without altering the existing skinning and sort of have it as like a secondary effect. The only downside to that is I don't believe it's compatible with game engines, because it's basically creating an additional layer of skinning on over the top of everything, so you can't bake it down. I think the option would be you sort of need to recreate it in game engines, which I don't think is possible to do. I don't think you can have multiple skin clusters, or you'd basically have to create a new sort of deformer for whatever game engine you're using that emulates it in a similar way. My experience in that is limited, but I'm pretty sure that's how it'll go, just based on the response I got to certain things. Changing rotation order settings. Reorder rotate options. Change the rotation order. Ooh, that's cool. Changing the rotation order of a gimbal locked shoulder using reorder rotation. Oh, so it actually like figures out what's going to be gimbal locked and undoes that. That's pretty cool. Hopefully that can be done on controls and things and isn't just limited to joints. I'm pretty sure there are tools out there currently which do similar things, but again, it's nice to have this as sort of like a native Maya thing. New set of options, reorder rotation will be added to the modify menu, allow you to change rotation axes of selected objects as well as evaluate and show the likelihoods of gimbal lock for each. Now that's very cool as well, using math to sort of like calculate it ahead of time. Cool. Interesting. Definitely a nice feature to have. New joint draw styles. By the way, I've only had a quick glance at some of these guys, so if I'm reacting to them in a weird way, it's probably because I didn't really expect to see them. A walkthrough of different joint draw styles. The new draw style joint has been added to draw style menu. When you select joint from the draw styles menu, only a sphere displays if you choose bone, and a sphere and a cone is shown. Only a sphere displays if you choose bone, a sphere, and okay, that's kind of cool. So you don't have to have the arrows pointing at everything each time, which might help reduce confusion sometimes, especially with new riggers. There's sometimes when you're using like the bone draw style or whatever they're calling it, where like that arrow is pointing to the next joint, and you think, oh cool, like my current joint is pointing at the next one, where in fact like the same translation and rotation is being maintained. It's not aiming at the next one or whatever. I have had some students have some issues with that before, so that's, I guess, a handy feature to have. Multi-child as box as well. All right, I wonder if that could be used for like projecting weights or something as well. Interesting. This is the other big one that people have been talking about. New rigging math nodes. Robust set of math nodes have been added to existing list for simple operations, often combining them to create complex rig components. So I think there's a lot of stuff in here which is probably way more standard in like game engines and things these days. So it's really nice to just have like all of these available by default as well. Because Maya's been without them for a long time. You'd have to do them like through Bifrost or through expressions and things like that. I think they've got like tan and stuff in here. Is it tan, sin, sine? Yeah, sine, tan, cos, all that good stuff. Inverse lerv, a new multiply. That's interesting. Negate. Oh, is that different to? Oh, that's negate is going to be really handy. Normally I just create like a reverse node or a node that just multiplies by negative, so it's nice to have that as well. Normalize, that's cool. Yeah, I think there's like, it's going to take a while to remember that all this stuff is probably in there now. I think I've seen somebody on Twitter going through and doing some of these, like I think I saw them do like an RBF solver kind of thing, and also set up an IK chain. Which again, I think they mentioned, I can't remember who it was. If their name comes to mind throughout the stream, I'll try and I'll post it in chat. But yeah, it's not going to be like as an easy process as doing it through Bifrost, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this method is probably going to be more performant in Maya, because from what I understand, Bifrost still isn't as fast as people would like, therefore making it pretty annoying to rig in. Like I think it was like Morgan Loomis or something a few years back, recreate an IK chain using Bifrost, and I think the performance was like significantly slower than even the standard Maya IK chain, which isn't particularly performant based on what I understand. So yeah, it'll be interesting to sort of do some performance testing and just seeing like what the right avenue to go down is. New human IK character template. The new human character IK template full rig controls config has been added to the 2 existing templates. This new template provides a comprehensive list for all spine, neck, hand, and foot joints. Is this just adding in additional ones? I thought all this, as I'm just looking at this stuff, this all looks pretty familiar to standard or previous versions of Maya. Actually, we can probably check that. So this is old Maya that I'm jumping into now. I've got human IK up here. Create skeleton. What do I have to go to? Not control rig. Oh boy. It's going to do that. I think I have to create a character definition, right? That's all in there. Like that to me looks all the same, but I guess it might be a more standardized one or something. Might be a way to just like quickly connect everything up. I mean, this is probably less useful, especially with the stuff I do, because I've got a bunch of like dictionaries that I use to assign values and things without having to use the interface. So I don't save these out as XML files and stuff as well. I just keep it as dictionaries. So less useful for me, but could be useful to people who use it for transferring joint data and things like that. Global scaling settings for proximity wrap deformer. Oh, now that is useful. Most of the time, like with wrap deformers in Maya, this is like the standard wrap deformer as well. If you like scale an object down, you'll get a lot of, what would you call it? Glitches, visual artifacts and things like that, because it doesn't like scaling the stuff massively. It's sort of designed to just be like an alike surface on an alike surface and that moving it around. If you like condense those surfaces down, it starts creating issues. And you sort of have to like get around it through like clusters, scaling stuff beforehand and things like that. I haven't had a chance to really use the proximity wrap all that much, but I have heard it's pretty good. It's sort of like a new and improved standard Maya wrap deformer, so that's definitely something to check out. Before and after complex deformation without the use of transformers deformation and driver cluster matrix attributes applied. There are new ways to control how proximity wrap drive is used to influence the deformation of the input geometry. Invert drives can be moved, deformed, and or transformation of the driver. Yeah, okay, cool. Additional matrix node controls. A new matrix settings has been added to both the aim matrix and blend matrix. Space matrix is a set of pre and post matrix floats that multiplies inputs and outputs, letting you create setups without the need for extra Okay, that's a handy feature as well. I mean, I don't use the matrix stuff a lot. It's the way I design my stuff. It's kind of with the mindset of I will use matrices at some point in the future. But right now it's just easier to debug by using constraints and everything. But that is a cool thing to know because, yeah, the one downside to using matrices is although it is faster than using constraints, you get a huge like node network generally just to do like what would be the equivalent of like one parent constraint or whatever. So anything to limit the amount of nodes is useful. New space modes for UV pin, proximity pin, and skin cluster nodes. A new relative space mode has been added to the UV pin and proximity pin deformers. Attribute editor for skin cluster node options. Use the relative space mode menu to choose the space your nodes are evaluated from, local, world, or custom. World is a default setting. Local uses the geometry space for evaluation, so that means no double deformation. Oh, no double deformation transformations occur if the geometry moves. That is super handy to have for debugging, and just so you don't have to make sure that all of your transforms have that option box ticked. What is it? If you click on the locator, Go into attributes. What is it? Inherent transforms. You know, you can tick that off, and generally that means if there's like a double deformation, if like a transform is moving geometry, if you tick that off, like that'll like help it, or you just need to make sure that your geometry is underneath the right sort of hierarchy in your outliner. This sounds like that's going to get rid of that, which is pretty cool. And custom lets you add an external matrix as the space. These options let you avoid issues with double deformations or transformations where the geometry parent is moved. This sounds like it might be, could be utilized in the same method as the pre-bind matrices for skin clusters as well. That'll be interesting to check out. Cool. Yeah, so overall, there seems to be a lot. Ooh, do we want to check out like let's maybe check out some of these other things as well. What do we got? Animation performance improvements. Oh boy, evaluation toolkit. I don't want to go into too much detail with these because these are going to probably be more boring. New GPU outline and things. Well, this is good. This is good for like graphical output mode. Evaluation toolkit. Oh, provide insight into evaluation. For example, you can see if you put how many nodes are claimed by the evaluator. Is this like a profiler but in more detail, basically? GPU download. Interesting. Well, anything to increase performance, GPU download. Especially when playback of animation on complex rigs. This is always something they say, but I don't know how true it actually is. This release includes enhancements to the GPU deformation workflow. One of them addresses the issue of frequent rebuilding or repartition of the graph for GPU evaluation, which was sometimes disruptive in large scenes. Another major change now schedules the nodes from the GPU in a more granular fashion instead of a few large clusters. Okay, it sounds like a lot of under the hood kind of things that I don't want to go into too much detail about because I probably won't understand what half of it is talking about. Graph editor improvements. New tools have been added based on customer feedback to improve commonly used graph editor workflows. I imagine a lot of this stuff they're probably going to talk about in here is probably already a part of something like Animbot or whatever. Ooh, new key scaling widget. That's cool. New offset and clamp curve settings. 2 new settings, offset curves and clamp curves have been added to the graph editor. Let you quickly edit curve animation. Interesting. Ah, yes, this is cool. So something like this, for example. So basically, like, I think Richard Lico, he's a guy who's an animator on that, is it the Moss PlayStation game? I think he uses like a similar workflow for, like, if a tail, you sort of like animate a tail moving around or whatever, you bake it into world space. And to make it stop hitting the ground, you sort of clamp the range on the, like, the translate Y or translate Z if you're in Unreal or whatever. And if you clamp it at like that 0 point on the graph editor, then it's not going to go below. When it, like, kind of like a quick, cheap and easy way to sort of like have dynamics on a character or animate dynamics and then just edit the curves to offset it. So that's cool to have. You remove key features. Oh, before. Oh, dang. After current frame, outside current range. That's really useful. Ripple delete. Moves keys between the set range in the ripple delete and closes the gap between created. Oh, damn. Yes. Okay, yeah, this is me reacting, guys. I have not read any of this stuff. I'm like, damn, that's pretty useful. So basically, like, you just delete a bunch of keys and it immediately brings your other keys immediately in place. Like, this is all, yeah, I'm pretty sure this stuff is in, like, Animbot and things, but yeah, it's great to actually have that in Maya as well. Restored graph editor functionality. New settings, left clicking moves selected keys. More importantly, you can disable this option so that clicking only selects keys. This is useful when working with densely keyed areas so that keys are not moved if your marquee selection is too close. Oh, cool. Okay, that's useful. New graph editor. Ooh! Oh, dang. New tangency controls. So I have a feeling this will be really useful for debugging like keyframe information when you're doing like set-driven keys, and also just like saving out key information if you're making your own scripts or whatever, because you get the in tangencies, the out tangencies, and whatnot. So all of this stuff is probably good just to check like what's going on after you rebuild. 2 new options, angle and weights, have been added to give easy access and better control over tangency weighting, letting you change angles and weighting on multiple keys at the same time. Ooh, that's good as well. Yeah, Moss had that jazz for sure. Yeah, Richard Leakey, I wonder if I can... animation video. He had a really cool video. I'll link it in chat. Which I'm pretty sure goes through his animation workflow. He's got a very particular style for rigging, which I think I've talked about before, where it's basically you rebuild the entire rig on the fly. Like, so if you animate everything in FK mode, you press a button, it bakes it all out, makes an IK system instead, bakes that, and then you that's how you swap spaces, basically. There's no like switching in the rig. You're basically swapping out components on the fly, and it's like a really interesting way of rigging, super light and really flexible. The only downside to that is it's like a very specific animator workflow, and it's one that not a lot of animators are used to. Because if you sort of like pitch that to a bigger studio, it's like, oh, we can make the rigs really, really light. The only problem is you have to be in charge of like updating things and swapping the FK-IK mode and everything. And there's no switches. This is all done through scripts, and you're gonna make sure those scripts are working and everything. That's when like animators are like, it's kind of getting too far away from what I'm used to. So, you know, I'm sure it works very, very well because he is the animator, and like anybody who has to come onto the project would utilize it. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in that talk that he's got. I would highly recommend it. Yeah, I know all this stuff because I pitched like ideas like that to animators before, and they're like, it's cool, but it's not what I'm used to. Therefore, let's stick to what we know, kind of thing. Which is understandable because they got shit they need to do. Can't be learning a new workflow every single time just to make something, 2 FPS faster or something. Restore exponential fall-off behavior. Improved graph editor region keys. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of just general cool improvements, which is good, and it's going to be really good when everybody updates to Maya 2024 in about 5 or 6 years. Because based on people on Twitter and what people are using right now, what versions of Maya, people are like, I'm still on 2019, I'm still on 2018. And it's like, oh, Christ. It was like the change over between, I think it was 2015 and 2016. And that was when they introduced, I'm pretty sure that was the one. Was it 2016? That's when they introduced parallel evaluation. And a lot of studios didn't want to move up to that, because even though the improvements were really good, it had a chance to break like a bunch of pre-established things. Because like rigs were built in a very specific way prior to parallel evaluation, where you'd want to sort of rely on parenting rather than constraints and stuff like that, because parenting would have been the fastest option. And then if you like update to parallel evaluation, like it's great, you get a lot of speed, but the way your old rigs were sort of like built weren't effective anymore, and they'd actually might get a performance loss. So you sort of had to like restructure everything. So understandably, like studios that didn't have time for R&D and stuff couldn't update immediately. The other issue I think with 2016 was, for some reason, nodes that were invisible still evaluated. That wasn't something that came for like a patch in like Service Pack 3 or something like that. Or maybe the next version of Maya or something. Because I remember that distinctly being an issue at some of the studios I worked for. And until that was fixed, and it's like, okay, well, I think, again, there were some workflows around that where you had to like set LOD visibility and that would fix it. But then I discovered leftovers, remnants of that system like a studio had used when I like was using the rigs like 3 years later or something, and it's like it was causing a bunch of new issues. So, growing pains of updating. It's the same thing now. It's because updating from 2020 to 2022, there's some growing pains there as well, because now Python 3 is the only Python used in Maya. Can't use Python 2 anymore. A lot of old code was based in Python 2, and people obviously don't want to update because that's a huge hassle. The other reason being Maya updated how deformers worked between those versions. So in order to add that, I think it's the component tag stuff, it fundamentally changes how deformers are built. Like they're now done in a different way if you use the, I think they're done in a new way if you use the Maya API or whatever. There's different functions work differently because I encountered some issues when using API stuff. because it's like, oh, that's how it used to build, but now it builds in a different way. I've had this issue where I've tried to open stuff in 2020, either 2020 or 2019 that I've built in 2020, and the rigs will work, but all the deformers break because it doesn't know how to process this new stuff. You basically have to rebuild all your skin clusters, you have to rebuild any deformers, clusters, wraps and things like that. So yeah, a lot of hassles to get stuff working in like earlier versions. But anyway, like let's actually like dive in. So this is old Maya. Let's go over to new Maya. Let's dive in and actually like take a look at some of these new things. I probably want to go through the modeling stuff first, just to see if that all works. Like the one I'm interested in first of all is just like this, the make live stuff, because what we could probably do is build like a few cubes, or a few spheres, move them all around, just sort of like get a weird mass. I just want to change up my music because I think this is getting towards the end of this album. Yes, I am correct. What haven't we listened to in a while? Alright, let's perk things up. So I believe if you select all of these now, and you hit make live, yes, and it identifies them in the outliner as well, which is cool. So where are the modeling toolkit? So if you go quad draw, does it not indicate? Ooh, it's got different color visibility as well. Cool, so you can just like go between all these different meshes now. Don't have to worry about combining them. It's going to be interesting to see how... Actually, this is pretty performant. And it's not really freaking out on anything too much, which is good. The issue you normally encounter... This is just like a really nice quality of life thing. The issue you normally encounter, though... Actually, I think... Can you... mouse over... P-sphere 1... Does it tell you? Oh, okay. Add selected, remove selected. So if I get all of these, make that live, and then I can like select P-sphere 1, right click here and go remove selected. Ah, cool. It takes it out. Oh, then it was like, then it's not snapping it to everything. One thing with make live, and sort of like working, if you have like a double-sided thing, it can be a little finicky. What's going to be the best way to kind of test this out? Because you might do a bunch of stuff on this side, but then it might snap to the other. Because this is a simplified mesh, that might not be too much of a problem. That would be something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's a really nice feature. Retopologize. I think it'd be cool. Let's open up some of like my old... let's go into old Maya. Let's go into... That would actually help if I show what I'm doing. Assets. Land, animal. What if I like... Can I retopologize the old Komodo dragon? What do I have here? This is the one that's like... Yeah, I'm interested to see like how the retopology tool would work on something like this. And also my own topology mirrored, orient, split, and combined. Nope. Hold on, I might be... They might have similar names. Nope, that one's not mirrored. I believe, yeah, that one's like done by me. Alright, well, we can maybe try and retopologize a more symmetrical character to see that symmetrical option, but let's try loading this one. I'm gonna have to import it, aren't I? Yeah, see, this is why I like having my browser, because it makes things inherently easier to work with than just going through all the... Oh wait, that's the wrong one. There we go, that's better. Is this the standard Lambert 1? It might just be for this character. Now, I am going to try and retopologize, or run the retopologize tool on this character. It is fairly GPU intensive, so I may be digging my own grave, and it may crash Maya. It may also make the stream a little laggy, but let's see how performant it is. In fact, it might be a better idea if we just do it on something that's like smaller first, but still pretty intricate. Like, can we just like delete the body and maybe just do like the arms just to see how that goes? Let's just delete all that crap. So this is still pretty higher resolution, but let's see what happens. Mesh, retopologize. So yeah, for those who don't know about this tool, it basically does a whole bunch of like simplification to the mesh. It's sort of like a decimation, but it tries to keep a good quad workflow. Like, it's not going to be ideal. You'll generally get like some twisting and like your face loops and things like that. Yeah, there were issues prior with like keeping detail as well, but yeah, how many faces do we have on this guy? I don't have the script editor up. Oh, look at this. A fresh script editor with nothing in it. Ryan Porter would be very, very happy with me. So how many faces do we have? 5,000. So yeah, we can maybe like try and bring it down to 1,000. Keep original. Let's keep that on. Scan mesh for issues. Reprocess mesh. Preserve hard edges. Edges by angle. And we got the symmetry option. So I think these two are new. I don't think we could maybe try... Well, let's first try it without preserving. Potential issues. Low resolution input mesh with process mesh. Pre-process mesh is intended for use with high resolution input meshes. Considering disable pre-process mesh. Where's that option? Pre-process? Oh, that might be on like a high resolution scan or something. Let's try this. Damn! Okay. That was super quick. We've definitely got some issues here. Ah, I think I know why. Because I'm pretty sure this mesh isn't actually merged. Yeah, it's one of those annoying things where all these separate like faces are actually separate. Let's change that. We can easily fix that by going mesh. Where's the merge tool? Edit mesh, merge, there we go. All that'll do is it'll just like find any vertexes that are on top of others and just bind them together. So now if we select everything, yep, we can see everything is selected. Cool, cool, cool. Let's make sure. Oh, hold on one second, I want to minimize this other Maya so I don't get confused. Let's make sure. Oh, the mel bar is over here. And that's the script editor stuff here. You guys can see that on the stream, right? Yes, it is. It's not out of the way. So get the mel bar here, and this is just a tooltips thing? Okay, so you can like... Oh god, oh god. Why did I do that? What have I done? Damn it. I've already fucked things up, ladies and gentlemen. Can I squeeze you in there? Thank you. All I wanted to do was pull it along. Yeah, okay. So we can just delete the construction history on that. Fantastic. So let's run that again. Oh god. And ooh, we did not crash. So you can see, like, if you didn't want to retopologize stuff, and you just needed sort of like a quick mesh you can quickly do some rough skinning on while you wait for a proper retopologized one, or even maybe like one you wanted to use as like a basis for things, this is pretty good. Like, obviously, yeah, we got some issues like the sort of like joining areas around here and like some weird like wrapping that's probably going to go on, but like Maya does, like, for the complexity of like what this is, that's pretty damn good, I gotta say. Let's see if we can delete that. Does this keep? Cool. Preserve hard edges. Is this gonna do anything? Potential issues. High percentage of edges that are marked hard. Reduce the number. Let's, well, ignore and continue. Famous last words. This might potentially crash it. Just based on, I guess. Well, I can see myself. Am I still talking? Can people hear me? Oh boy. Either chat is quiet or I am down. I can definitely hear my computer's fan going. I am still here. Fantastic. Yeah, I probably didn't need to preserve that check hard edges thing. Can I stop it? I can. Well, okay. That was easy enough to do. Well, what happens if I smooth that? Soften edge. Same thing. Let's delete that. Okay, yeah, and that just... same sort of deal. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Alright, so let's put it to the test now. How many faces does this have? About 50,000 faces. So maybe we want to reduce that to about... not that small. 10K is normally pretty good for a low resolution mesh. That's generally what I'd aim for like a low resolution human on like a, in a film context. It's probably way too high for like a game engine or whatever. That could definitely be optimized, but this might be a good test for this. So we wanted to turn that hard edge off. Symmetry, let's apply that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, damn, that was like 5 seconds. Did that work? No, it didn't work. That might be one we have to pre-process the mesh for. Let's see what that says. Potential issue may prevent a successful retopologize. Low resolution input mesh with pre-process. Cancel. Scan mesh for other issues. So it's too low res. Doesn't need that. Why did it not work? Maybe we gotta up the tolerance. Let's go 25%. It may potentially be too complicated as well. Yeah, interesting. Keep original, scan mesh for issues, don't need to pre-process. Let's maybe up the target count a bit. See if that helps at all. Oh, you know what? It may be because this isn't merged. Yeah, same thing that we had before. Let's do... yeah, that might be it. Mesh. Merge. Cool. So that should all be one mesh now. Fantastic. Let's get rid of the construction history and let's run that again. That's taken a bit more time now, which probably indicates that it's actually working. I actually might need to utilize something like this retopologizing tool for a character I'm working on at the moment. Oh, boom. There we go. That was maybe about 10 to 20 seconds. And that's honestly not too bad. We've got some decent flow. Damn, we've actually got some decent flow around, like, the cylinders. This is definitely something that could be workable. Not ideal, but yeah. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, the main downside of using Retopo before was just how slow it was. But it seems like a lot of those issues are slowly being ironed out. Yeah, it'd be cool to try the Retopo with the symmetry and stuff. I wonder if there's like a higher res mesh we can use. But anyway, okay, let's hop back into other Maya. What do I have that is symmetrized that we could maybe test it on? I think this grizzly bear that I was using at some point. This is like a Sketchfab one. Oh boy. Yeah, well, we definitely don't want that hair. Yeah, something like this. We can maybe see what the difference is between a symmetrical one and one that isn't. Let's do that. So let's go back to here, get a new file, and we can import in the grizzly bear. Get rid of that, get rid of the collar. Let's maybe duplicate out one. So how many faces we got on this bear? Actually, we may want to... Well, actually, because this is multiple meshes. Maybe let's try and run the tool on it with these multiple meshes as one. We probably want to, like, separate everything, because I think, like, the eyes and everything are in it. But I'm not sure if it has the capacity to, like, do all of this rebinding. Oh, wow, this is, like, 10K. Okay. Let's maybe go 5K. Tolerance, what was that before? 10%. 10 is probably fine. Let's see how this goes. Non-manifold. Oh, yeah. Mesh cleanup. Cancel. Mesh cleanup. Cleanup. Construction history. Cleanup. Oh, is it not set? Oh, yeah, it's not set by default, is it? Cleanup. Remove non-manifold. Oh, I think that, yeah, I think this mesh has got some weird manifold stuff somewhere, like in the neck area or whatever. Oh, there was like some weird triangle issues actually. Yeah, well, let's take a look. See. Retopo. Oh, okay. That did not seem to work. Okay, yeah. So we probably want to mesh, separate all these out. So we just want to run it on that mesh. Oh, that's the cleanup one. Nope. Let's see how that goes, if this works. Hey, cool. Oh yeah, you can see the issues underneath there. Yeah, I think there's like a few like rogue triangles that aren't working in that underneath area, but again, this is like pretty decent. This, you can see the issues with symmetry comes in here, where there's no like direct line down the middle, and you'd sort of have to like edit them yourself to like get it working previously. But let's see if we can use that option. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, what the hell? They just like... Oh yeah, if you deleted the non-manifold geometry, then it's going to be gone. That makes sense. Let's do symmetry. Axis position, object. Let's do world. And we want positive to negative x. Let's run that, see how it goes. Yes, that is so much better. Oh, damn. Yeah, it's actually, that's cleaned up a fair few issues in that area, actually, as well. How's the face look? Yeah, you definitely want to go in and, like, fix some of the geometry ahead of time. But even with those errors, like, damn, even, like, the jaw and everything is looking pretty good. Shit, okay. Good job, Maya. Good job, Autodesk. Alright, cool. That pretty much covers the retopo stuff I wanted to look at. Very happy with that kind of outcome. I think what we'll look at now is the de-subdividing, or the unsmooth, as they call it. Let's hop back into old Maya, because I believe I've got a T-Rex somewhere. Model... Let's see. So this T-Rex, so I've already done like a reduced version, I believe. This was done through our 3ds wrap, but originally, I think the mesh that I brought in, do I have like the input file? Man, this is like old. I don't have any of my most up-to-date sort of like file systems in here. Lucas, welcome, buddy. How you doing? Mr. Phantom, welcome. Seems like a bit of a sus message.
Slow down, sir.
Oh,
You're going to give yourself skin failure.
thank you very much for the resubscription, my friend. Much appreciated. Yeah, we're just currently going through a bunch of the new Maya 2024 tools. I've just got done with some of the retopologize stuff, which is a really handy new tool that is very beneficial to us if we're working with like scans and high decimation meshes. Yeah, I hope you've been doing good, bud. But now we want to try the new, basically like a de-subdivide tool. Be cool to test that it works. So I'll save that. Let's hop back into the new one. And, oh no, we want to import. Cool, so let's get rid of that one. So what do we got? Mesh, unsmooth. Let's take a look at the options here. Oh, and you got different subdivision levels as well. Keep original. Did that work? Doesn't look like it did. That is concerning. Why did it offset it as well? So it moves the old geo? But it can't, okay. Let's delete that. Does it need a higher subdivision? Let's not keep the original. That didn't do it. Cannot unsmooth the selected mesh because it was not created through Catmull-Clark subdivision. That isn't as useful as I thought it would. Because I'm pretty sure this mesh is done through that. Cannot unsmooth because it was not created through Catmull-Clark. Because what are the two options? Maya, Catmull-Clark, and Open Subdiv, Catmull-Clark. I've unsubdivided this in others. Like, this mesh right here is made from it, I'm pretty sure. Right? Or am I, oh, yeah, it is. Okay, well that's previous algo or something. Welcome, Borna, my friend. How you doing, buddy? I think... Yeah, because I'm pretty sure if I move... Oh yeah, well, like this one, if I cluster it, move it across, blend shape, no deformable objects. Oh yeah, we're set up, so I don't have to check the topology, but we do that. Yeah, so all of those points snap to it, and all the original points are left behind. So conversely, blend shape that one to that one. Yeah, that all snaps. So it is possible to subdivide it in R3S wrap, but for this case, yeah, I guess it's like not the same algorithm as Borna says or whatnot, or it's just a different subdivision one. But this is like an old T-Rex. This is like, I think this is Bolton Turbo Squid. This is like one of the first animation jobs I did, like freelance, which I think was like 2010, 2011, something like that. Like, this has been on Turbo Squid since then, I'm pretty sure. So, it's definitely an old algorithm. Oh well, that's kind of disappointing. But I guess we can just try it sort of more standard way. What do I got? Well, actually, does this one do it? We got a tongue. We're gonna get the same error. Yeah. But if we were to smooth this one time, delete the construction history, and then run unsmooth. Okay. That's an interesting way to check the model topology. I like it. Can you transfer attributes? What do you mean, Borna? How would that, in what way would that help? Modify transfer attributes from old mesh to new mesh. I think the issue just jank it into thinking stuff like vert normals are the same. Oh. Interesting. Okay. Hold on. I just deleted all that stuff. So like if I subdivide this one, unsubdivide it, and then transfer it to the one that hasn't been like that? Is that sort of the idea? Oh man, this song breaks down. Let's call that a ridge. Like if we go mesh, smooth that, and smooth that, delete. Ah, yes, interesting, interesting, interesting. It doesn't preserve the volume as well. Interesting. Let's go mesh, transfer attributes. Vertex position, vertex normal. Don't need to do UVs or color sets. Sample space world is good. Let's try that. And then mesh, unsmooth. No, damn. I guess the classic route of reroute the original shape node into the old mesh. Yeah, I'm wondering where the issue could be coming from. Oh, unless like whatever thing it's running to check the mesh, to say like, oh, is this using the right method? It's just not triggering the right thing or whatever. Like this was just a big thing for me to check, like, because like, again, I can use R3ES wrap to do this. They had that in the last version from like last year or 2 years ago or whatever. It's just like, oh, if you can do it in Maya, that's just like a handy addition. Could just be buggy Maya though, right? Yeah. Oh well, success with the Retopo tool, but less success with the smooth mesh tool. Was there anything else in the modeling sort of workflow that I wanted to look at? Boolean stuff, not too worried about. We've done the make live, done retopo. Yeah, I think it might be time to hop onto the new skin cluster stuff. Let's take a look at that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I am going to go grab some more tea because I am nearing the end. So I will be back in just a second, folks. Give me 1 or 2 minutes. I'll be back with some new tea and we'll take a look at the multiple skin cluster workflow in Maya 2024. Back in 1 sec. And we are back. Sorry, I've been neglecting chat a little bit because I've been so focused on checking out these new things. How is everybody doing? Let me see what I miss. Just remembered I finished with the IKFK hand tool thing. Started with legs yesterday. Is that a like a way to transfer positions of like FK controls to IK controls and vice versa, Riads? Or is that just setting up IKFK sort of standard module hierarchy on a rig kind of thing? Transfer. It's a rig setup. Cool. Yeah, how's it all going? Are you still loving the process? What do I want to do? Let's get that over there. Let's create polygon primitive. Give guides and then set up an IKFK rig. Cool. Actually, I think I've seen some of your stuff like that on Twitter. Or parts of it. Maybe it was just the FK, the IK setup, right? How are you finding it all? Is it pretty intuitive? You're finding, like, as you go along, do you add more things? Or do you have, like, a pretty solid idea, like, to start with, and you stick to that? Are you finding yourself having to, like, improvise a little bit more as you go through? Yeah, it's been great. I feel like I know Maya much better. I totally can relate to that, man. Like, one of the main benefits I found to, like, building a system yourself is you get much more of a, like, finite understanding of how components of Maya work with each other. And just, like, how different modules talk to each other and ways you can get them, like, together and everything. Because some of this you can take for granted if you're using, like, auto riggers or, like, just ones that are built by studios that you work for and things like that. Like, you sort of inherently know vaguely the concept behind them, but you're not intimately knowledgeable of it, you know? It's definitely good to have. I've just been looking forward for evenings to dive deeper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've recently, like, I've done a few jobs that require me to use Advanced Skeleton. And, like, Advanced Skeleton is fine. It does its job really, really well and gives a lot of power to animators and, you know, new riggers and things like that. It's just, like, the systems it uses, like, the way everything's sort of, like, laid out and structured and everything, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, just... I think with their, like, what they call the fit skeleton, which is their sort of, like, guides or whatever, it's just, like, sometimes I'm not understanding why certain things are not orienting the right way or whatever. And again, like, I don't have the intimate knowledge of how Advanced Skeleton is, like, structured and how the meld works and how it, like, snaps things to other things and orients everything. That's where the benefit of a system that, like, you've designed and have comprehensive knowledge over, like, would come into play and, like, helps, you know? It's like, oh, they say, hey, Robbie, why aren't these fingers controls not oriented correctly? And it's like, I don't actually know. I need to take a look. Oh, I think I found the solution, but I don't know 100%. So it does pay to be able to, like, you know, do that at the same time, troubleshoot and whatnot. But yeah, sometimes if shit just needs to get done, you need to do it yourself. I need to do that. Just try stuff on Maya with no go in mind, so I won't get frustrated. No goal in mind, so I won't get frustrated about it. Specifically, play with different nodes and stuff. Yeah, what does Raph from Cult of Rig called it? Like nodeling or whatever, where you just go through and, like, in the node editor, just put things together and see what happens and things like that. Or you take a rig, like a high quality rig that you've downloaded online, grab a control, open up the node editor, expand it so you can, like, see the node network and just kind of, like, understand how they put everything together. That's a good way of, like, figuring things out as well. What am I? Oh man, I feel like I'm so blind without all of my shelves and everything. I need to centralize my Python 3 shelves so I can use them more easily in other Mayas. Because I want to do some skinning testing on this cube. Let's call this Geo. I'm gonna go one there, one there, one there. Let's go shoulder joint, elbow joint, and wrist joint. I guess the first thing, checking out some of the new features, is the new draw styles we got. So I believe if you set all of these to just joint. Oh yeah, you can't multi-select, can you? I swear, was this not a thing in earlier Mayas? Where you could just remove the bone connections in the middle? Am I crazy? Well, let's fucking find out. Easy enough to do. Oh, wow! Was that really? So this is Maya 2022 I'm in. Was that seriously not a part of it? Man, okay. Like, obviously, it's just, I mean, I'm used to the sort of, the draw style of the bones and everything, but I could have sworn. Or it might be a thing where... Bone. Let's, change that to bone. Or is it like if you set the draw style to none? Oh, that might have been it. I think from like a face rig once, I had like a head joint or whatever, which I set to none, so it'd remove all of the bone sort of arrows pointing to all the different face joints. Because if you got like 100 face joints, like it's just a blur of everything with all the arrows pointing to everything. So getting rid of those, actually, this is gonna be fucking great for doing that. Okay, I was less enthused about this before. I was like, oh, that's kind of standard. But that's actually a pretty good addition. Yeah, that is too much for me right now, since I'm not used to work with the node editor. I get lost in it that when I grab a rig and has a lot of special nodes in it. Lucas, I definitely recommend, like this is, I mean, this is just something that kind of comes with using Maya more and getting used to like rigging workflows and things like that. But definitely get into using the node editor more. Like me personally, I don't use the node editor for like rigging specifically. I don't like just open up the node editor, go through, connect thing one by one. If I'm making, constraints, I add a few like matrix nodes, connect them all up. Like I don't work in a very node specific way. I know some people do, and I think, what's her face, who's Rig Station on Twitter, Raja, is that their name? I know they created a really cool node editor, custom node editor thing recently. Rig Station? Yeah, if you guys don't follow Rig Station, you definitely should. Yeah, they added a custom node editor setup where you could sort of, because the node editor sucks in its default form, because you can like lose your structure of everything really easily. Like you add something in and all of a sudden all the wires get pulled into different places and things like that. It's just annoying. So I think she's gone through and changed some of these things. So like stuff stays in place. You can add like colors behind stuff to like indicate like this is this part of the rig, this is part of it's like basically a workflow that's similar to like Unreal or a game engine or whatever, and it's like sorely needed. I'm just so used to doing more of like an outliner sort of style of rigging that I haven't had time to like pick it up and test around with it yet. Node editor is great. Made most of my stuff there. Now with Mel, I do the same. Make the graph and then code it out. Yeah, like, yeah, that jazz is so cool. The things needed are usually another node. Yeah, exactly. Like, the node editor is really good for troubleshooting because you can just quickly, if you think you know where the source of a problem is, you can quickly like map those nodes out and sort of like go through node by node to figure out where the problems are. Like originally I learned to rig basically by, I think I downloaded like a free anim school rig or whatever, like not Norman, but something in the lines of that. And I was like, oh, I wonder how they do the wrist twist, how you can twist the wrist in any direction and it'll extract the twist. So I basically went through in the node editor, found where everything was, found they were using like an IK handle with no up vector to sort of extract out it using an orient constraint and things like that. That was basically how I coded my twist extraction for maybe a decade or whatever, until I changed it over to matrices and stuff more recently. So yeah, getting that workflow and that knowledge, highly recommend it because it makes you much better as a troubleshooter and you'll be able to find problems in rigs much more faster. Oh, I saw that. We'll try it. I just want to learn how to use proper nodes first, specifically now that my 24 has a ton. Yeah, it's got a ton of new cool math nodes as well. So yeah, more stuff to get our hands on. Actually, I wanted to check out the new multiply node that's in there. What was the other draw style in here? Multi-child as box? Oh boy. Where'd that go? Do they all have to be something? Nope. What was multi-child as box? New joint style, multi-child joint. Oh, is it when there's like multiple children? It does it as a box instead. Interesting. Okay, hold on, let's try that quickly. Whoa. What the hell? That's a new feature. Unless I've got an option. Symmetry off, scale components. Normally when I create joints, if you have like a joint selected, it'll automatically, or like if you click near a joint, it'll automatically use that as like a hierarchy. Is that an option? Or is that just like gone in Maya now? Wow, that's been like a workaround I've had to do for ages. So let's see, so multi-child is box. What was that? Huh? So I'm guessing that just means if the bone has multiple children, it'll just show it as a box instead for some reason. Is that so if you pull it apart? Oh! Well, well, well. Interesting. So that kind of... could that be useful? I guess it makes things a bit more clean. And it kind of more accurately displays what the idea behind it is. Okay, interesting. This is all just like visual feedback. I guess this could be useful, because I'm guessing, yeah, like it makes it a bit more selectable. Yeah, okay, cool. Have you tried the length node yet? I have not, Lucas. Is that like, oh shit, do you not have to use the distance stuff anymore? Hold on, okay, I'm just going to do a quick sneak peek of that. I'm going to... where's the node editor? General editors? Oh no, it's like here, isn't it? Length. Input. No behavior, UI, extra attributes. Is the input just a locator? Like translation? Then what does it spit out exactly? Output. Is this a new one? Where's my stuff? It is. Let's put out another locator. What's the output? Translate X. The length. Hold on, let me just Google this quickly. Length node Maya. Returns a scalar field whose values are the length of the value of the input vector field at any position. Is it not between 2 points? I might be thinking it more of like a distance node as opposed to length. Input vector field at any position. Not sure on that one. Okay, I'll have to come back to that. Actually, now we're here. Multiply? What was that one? Multiply attributes. I'm guessing this. Oh, so this is just like a multi-double linear, but you can put in more inputs than just one. Okay, that's kind of useful. Because otherwise you'd have to use the multiply divide. Where you'd only have 2. And, I mean, did they not do is there a divide as well? No. But I guess you could multiply it by like 0.5 or whatever to get that same stuff. Okay, well that's just going to reduce the need for like chaining multiple things together. What about like, what else we got? Anything else that's standing out? Round. Ooh, round is good. That's very good. That's useful. Min and max. Normalize. Oh yeah, we got sum. Average. Ooh, average is good. So wait, is sum basically just the same thing? Yeah, it just does basic addition then, I'm guessing. Gee, is there like a subtract? Minus? Nope. Like sums are good. Is there... I guess you could take the inverse of it and get... Okay, yeah, these are just like more standard nodes that people have been begging for a long time. And there's like a bunch of like node plugins that you can download to like basically get the functionality of a lot of these, I think. So that's cool that they're now like finally native in Maya. So yeah, maybe come to that, back to that in a bit. One thing, let's jump back into the skin clusters. That was something I wanted to take a look at. Cool, because I believe we go shoulder, elbow. Bind skin. Oh god, colorize skeleton, guys. I am not doing that. I hate colorized skeleton with a passion. Select a joint, spine method, closest distance, that's fine. Classic linear. Normalize weights, interactive is good. Colorize skeleton. The tool of the devil. Alright, that's way better. So I'm pretty sure this is probably going to show my ignorance of the native Maya tools because I don't use them as much as I used to. So now, what I believe can happen is you can add additional layers. So say for example, like in this layer, I was really happy with shoulder and elbow, but I didn't want to do like wrist skinning on this level. Is that something? Is that going to be like a good option? Well, basically you'd want like another... Actually, yeah, okay, let's do this instead. Do this. Put a joint there. We may need another one for later. This one's going to be tweak joint. And I'm pretty sure we can't just use... Well, actually, let's find out. We've got skin cluster 1. And if we go skin, bind skin... There's already a skin cluster at arm geo. Do you want to create another? Yes. Ooh. Skin cluster 1, skin cluster 2. And now, if you go into the standard tool, so in skin cluster 1, we've got these two influences. If we go to this next one, yeah, tweak joint is there. So if we can animate this, then we grab this and we can use that to offset it. We've got like two skin clusters evaluating at the same time. Cool. The interesting thing is going to be, did they add any functionality for copying skin weights across multiple skin clusters? Oh! Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, that's good. So, okay, let's say, theoretically, let's hide this, let's call this new one, copy weight. I am going to, this one's going to be called root joint. So we can select tweak and root, and let's skin up this new one. And let's do it so root is basically weighted for everything, but we're just going to have a very small amount of weighting like here. So it should only have an effect something like that. One thing I will need to do on the other mesh is, I guess... Oh, okay, the other thing. How do I add influences to multiple skin clusters? Edit influences? Add influence? Does it have options for this as well? Yes! Oh, okay, so they've... Okay, I was worried, like, they wouldn't have gone through and updated this so you can work with multiple skin clusters, but because we didn't have this root joint in here before, we need to add that to the arm geo, to the right skin cluster, because we want to make sure that we copy the same influences over. So we need to select the root, select arm geo, and then we can select skin cluster 2. Let's lock the weights. So we should see, if we look at that second skin cluster, we've now got the root in there. And let's try and copy the skin cluster. So copy weight, arm geo, skin, copy skin weights. Yes, so we can add that to that one. Closest point, closest joint, that's fine. Hey, and that's copied it over. Pretty cool. Here we go, all the roots and everything. So, like, as long as these joints don't move, it's basically like you're getting, you know, double deformation out of this. Ooh. Cool. Yeah, that's great that they've included all of these tool updates to make sure that you can actually work with multiple skin clusters as well. Same thing with mirror. Yep. Skin cluster source and target. Oh, interesting. So you don't have to mirror? You can mirror to different skin clusters as well. Very interesting. Huh. Okay, that's cool. Hammer skin weights, copy vertex weights. I'm guessing, yeah, like every single one of these tools now has updated functionality. Export weight maps. So I wonder how... It'd be interesting to find out how scripting it works, but the other thing I want to test out is prebind matrices. Oh, actually, well, we might not even need that. Yes, actually, we... Okay, hold on. Transforms there. Tweak joint, you go under here. Tweak joint 0. We got root joint 0. And they are all zeroed out. Great. So they did mention something in the notes. So you can go into the skin cluster now. Relative space mode. So does local mean... Thanks for dropping by, Borna. Catch you next time, buddy. Don't work too hard. That's staying in space. Local. Does that mean if I update that, is this now going to move relative? No. Oh, you need to specify the relative space matrix. Oh, so I think basically this means if you've got under a certain hierarchy, that hierarchy's moving. Relative space matrix. Yeah, well, maybe come back to that because that's not doing what I thought I was going to do. But with the... What do I need to plug in? 1 second, let me just look at my scripts. Skin clusters. What do I need to do to make it? Set prebind matrices. The parent inverse matrix. It's the world inverse. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Let's see. Let's open up the node editor again. Actually, it'd be good to see how it threads these as well. Pretty sure just, yeah, this looks like it's just the sort of standard output geometry. Yeah, it's just like you would chain multiple. This is just how we've set it up in Maya in the past as well. So it's just like native in Maya now, which is good. So what I wanted to do was, in Skin Cluster 2, we can use pre-bind matrices to make this relative. Fake Pivot, hello. Have you ever tried M-Gear? I haven't personally, Fake Pivot. I know M-Gear is very, very good. I just haven't ever worked with it myself. The primary reason being, like, most of the time when I've worked with sort of like established rigging pipelines or whatever, it's been within like a larger studio, like MPC or Method or things like that, and they have their own sort of Maya rigging pipelines and everything. And also when I started building my own thing, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't like just taking ideas from other guys without like thinking about it. I wanted to sort of like go in and like build things my way. And the nice thing has been, like, when I've actually compared my system to others I've started using, like Advanced Skeleton on certain jobs or whatever, I'm like, oh, they do things in a similar way to me. So, like, you know, Advanced Skeleton is tried and tested, so I'm glad, like, oh, okay, you know, we've got similar ideas on how to do things, so it must be somewhat effective. Currently learning to use M-Gear for one model I've made. Is M-Gear, you can use a lot of like UI stuff to build things in that, right? It's not all, I know you can code things for it, but it's got more of like a user-friendly UI system to that as well, right? So let's graph these zeros. And where are the pre-bind matrices? Bind pose or matrix? Nope. Do I need to edit custom attributes? Oh boy. What do you need to do to, like, show all attributes? There we go. Oh boy, this is probably going to be overkill. Where? Oh, ugh. Bind pre-matrices. I'm spelling it wrong. There we go. Bind pre-matrices. So, root, I think it's going to be the second one. Yep. So, let's pull that there. We want to use the, is it the world inverse matrix of the parent? This Maya. Oh, God. World inverse matrix, put that into 1. And the world inverse matrix, put that into prebind 2. So I think what this should do now is if we move, yes, if we move those groups, these joints are no longer going to deform stuff. It's only if you actually select the joints and move them around. So this nice aspect to this means we can like move that joint into place using the 0 group. We could do something like select this joint, select the 0 group, constrain, let's set up a parent constraint. So it's like, okay, we animate using this skin cluster and these joints, and this is offset, but because it's got the bind pre-matrices set up, we can then manipulate it like as a separate entity. And this is where what I was talking about before is like having sort of like a tweak thing is really useful. Because it's basically you have 2 skin clusters, one that doesn't interact with the other one. It only activates when you literally change the values on the joint itself. The 0 group, just like because of the way you connect it up with the matrices and everything, it just keeps it relative, and then, you know, you're able to sort of use this in a more of a useful manner. Love the animation feature and the new time slider in Maya 2024, though. I must say, Fake Pivot, like, it is looking pretty fly. It does look very nice, doesn't it? I need to look at, like, the new Under the Hood stuff. But yeah, it's definitely visually it's an improvement. Do you think this would be a better way to make like a breathing rig? It certainly could, Lucas. Yeah, for sure, man. It would be a way of like, yeah, you don't. We could maybe try and create something like that. Actually, what would be the best way? Let's open up old Maya and let's find a model we can use. Human. Files, model, main. Got the female. Do I have, or do we want to use an animal? Man, I might have to legally acquire my 2024. If you can use it like, if it's part of your job, Lucas, like you can use it as a tax write-off. At least that's what I do. I get Maya Indie, like you still have to pay for it, but it's significantly cheaper than buying a full version. I think it depends on like where you live. I think there's different amounts of what you're allowed to earn. Or like project sizes you're allowed to work on. Like they've got a bunch of indications, like if you earn over, like for Australia anyway, I think it's over like 100,000 AUD. If you earn over 100,000 AUD per year based on using Maya, this version of Maya, then like you have to pay for a standard Maya license. Otherwise, Maya Indie is fine. So it's like the difference between like, I think like Maya's like $6,000. And if it's indie, you get it for like $400 or something instead. So I've sworn by it like the last 2-3 years. It's great. My problem is conversion is like 5-to-1. Yeah, like it's still like Blender is still better because you can get it for free, you know. But yeah, I really wish Autodesk would like shape up with a proper like education version. It's just like so needed just to like allow students, because I think like you can still get a student version, but you have to do it, like you have to like put in the university that you're working for, and they like double check to make sure you're actually a part of the university. You can't just say like, oh, I'm learning from some guy on Twitch or whatever. They won't be like, that's not proper. We're not giving you a student license for that. But they really should, because, I mean, they're going to have to compete with Blender and stuff, you know? It's hard to compete with free. And I still don't make enough money to even think about it, but I'll get there when I pay. But I'll get there, then I pay. Yeah, that was same with me. You know, I had my other methods of utilizing Maya for about a decade before. Yeah, like I wanted to get it legit because I was actually using it for jobs and things. You know. Main thing, fake pivot. So before educational license was good, now they kind of kneecap themselves and Blender is frying. Like the issue is most big studios still use Maya and are still going to use Maya for like a decade or so. Like most big studios are probably not going to convert from Maya just because the pipelines are so ingrained in Maya. If they were to change, probably wouldn't be to Blender. It would be something like Houdini or whatever, because Houdini's got like much more sort of like open-ended aspects, or maybe even like Unreal or something like that. Who knows? So Blender's good for like students and things because it's cheap and it's a good program, and there's a lot of resources for it. And there are studios that do use Blender. It's just like if you want to go into like big VFX productions or whatever, and you're an animator or a rigger or whatever, it's like, well, you got to use Maya, or you got to learn Presto or whatever when you go to Pixar or yeah. Student version for Brazil is non-existent basically because there is no university paying that much for a license for a class. Oh, that sucks. Everybody I know works 3D is pretty much self-taught. Yeah. And that's the annoying thing. Like sometimes like it's not the fact that you're learning through a educational facility. You're just like fucking around yourself, you know? It's like, oh, I kind of want to learn a program on my own time and just mess around with things. It sucks that they're restricting things like that, you know? Do we still have access to the T-Rex? What did we go to last? Yes, we did. Okay, let's use Mr. Rex. Actually, okay, we won't even do that. Let's go to this lower resolution one. And we're gonna slice up the body. UV shell? Oh, are you serious? Alright, screw it. We're going to use a very segmented part of this body, and we're going to set up a very rough breathing workflow. So we're going to set up a rough spine, very rough spine, and then I'm going to set up an additional layer on top of that and use it as a breathing joint. So let's go into side mode. Oh, so I've been working in Z up for a bit on a job, so going back to Y up, I may accidentally click on wrong things or whatever, but I think we should be okay. Oh god, it's been so long since I've like laid out joints by myself as well. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. This should be fine. Spine 0 joint. And that's going to be end. Delete that one. Actually, let's call this one chest 0, just so we know that one's the chest. Has the rotations on these. That looks fine. All right, so let's grab 0, 1, 2, and chest. Select the mesh, and let's go bite skin. And we'll want to make sure that we rename the skin cluster. Always rename your skin clusters, folks. Model, actually, oh, okay. Normally, the way I do it is I'd have the name of the geometry underscore skin cluster. But in the case of this, maybe just to keep things clear, let's go and call this spine skin cluster instead. The university doesn't need to pay, actually. They just need the proof that you are studying. I was teaching in a university here in Latvia once, and I got everyone the same document in my class, and they, including me, got a license for a year. Oh, sick, okay. Next year you can do the same. It's just basically a document that proves you study where you study. Cool, yeah, maybe check that out then, Lucas, if you... Oh, are you studying at the moment, Lucas? Or are you just learning on your own time? I hate rig with Z up. I dreaded to animate with Z up. It's rare, but it's it makes it painful since we animate Y up all the time. It's just, yeah, you gotta, like, tweak your mind over. Like, it's the two choices that animators have if you're, like, working from Maya to Unreal. Do you want everything to be one-to-one? So what you do in Maya is going to be reflected in Unreal, like 100%, or do you want a more familiar structure and then you just convert it when you're like going to Unreal instead? There's like pros and cons to different methods. The way I build rigs, there's got capacity to be either, so it's no huge issue on my end at least. Oh god, default weights. Oh, do I even want to? Whoa, why is this brush... Why is this, like, scaling so small? Oh, we've also got the show numbers option here now. That's kind of cool. What am I looking for? I apologize, folks. It's been so long since I've actually used these standard tools. Visualization? Nope. Where's brush size? Stroke? Yes, there we go. So I think that goes up. Oh my god almighty. This is why I like NG Skin Tools, my friends. I graduated a long time ago and started working with 3D mostly as a 3D generalist, and for a while, and I decided to focus on rigging like a year and a half ago. Is there any way you could get like a license from work or whatever? Or are you kind of like, are you working on stuff yourself for now? As you sort of like learn rigging? Let's do some more harsher lines here. That's a bit blocky. Oh man, yeah, because I was like, oh, I can just smooth all this. Nope, that ain't gonna work. Skin. Where's skin weights? That's good. Oh boy. Let's get that like that. Cool. Let's key these a little bit. And let's fix this slightly. Pretty sure this is going to be a lousy way to do it, but let's smooth. Oh, God. Fuck my life. Okay, we're just going to use block weights, guys. Fuck it. I am not skinning without NG Skin Tools. If Victor was here, this is like me praising his work. It just makes me not want to use the standard Maya ones at all, because it's just so much easier to use his stuff. Okay, so let's just say this is all beautifully skinned up. We've got all of this, like you can manipulate all of these controls separately. We got the spine skin cluster done. So let's set it up so we can create a joint in the middle, and we can use that to sort of like scale up and down, and use that to maybe create like more of a breathing sort of system underneath. I need to sort of graduate a long time. I'm looking up this thing for you. Working for myself for the most part and sending resumes. Yeah, that's the way to go. I should definitely use this when I'm using standard Maya skin weights.
Well, I'm an idiot.
Yo, that's a great philosophy. Okay, so let's set this up pretty big. Actually, even let's just call this body G. It's like way too long. So this can be called.
Sit up straight.
Oh, yes, thank you. Is that gum? Is that gum? Is that gum? Oh yeah. Woo. Ah. This is be breathing joint. And let's create a zero group for that. So all you need to do is just snap a group into its position. I normally give it the suffix just 0 immediately afterwards. Pop that inside, and joint should be properly zeroed out. So very easy thing to do. Very easy to set up a script to do that. You just need to make a group, match it to the position of the transform, put the transform inside of it, and sometimes with joints, if the rotation is moved around, you might have to zero out some things, but yeah, that's because of how Maya's joints deal with inheriting parenting and like the two different joint orients and also joint rotations, like the two rotations that they've got. Let's duplicate this. So I always, when I'm doing like a tweak mesh or whatever, I'll always have a joint at the origin called like root joint or something like that. And let's just update the name of the zero group like so. So we got these two bad boys. So what we can do now, same thing. Let's select the root joint. Let's select that breathing joint, select the mesh, skin, bind skin, it'll ask us to create a new skin cluster. And we can rename this one like breathing skin cluster. And let's actually paint that a little bit as well. We fully weight the root. Oh, God almighty. Maybe unweight the arms a little bit. And actually, yeah, let's even pull that a tad. Let's mirror this one. And we can even smooth it a tad. I think, anyway. Cool. And we've got sort of like a breathing effect on this separate layer. So the reason we want that root joint there is because if you only have one joint in a skin cluster, it's 100% weighted to that. The skin cluster needs weighting to a influence in order for it to like work. If it's got 0 influences on any of the vertices, and it's only got one joint, like all of the vertices will like snap to the origin point, basically. You see that sometimes when like skin clusters error out and you're like, oh, why is my joint like snapping to the center? It's most likely because of something like that. So we've got a rough sort of like breathing sort of motion there. And what we want to do is sort of have it so like, you know, if you rotate the character around and everything, that this control follows along. And, you know, we'd be able to like scale it relatively, because right now it's like just pushing everything out based on its position here, which isn't ideal. So the way we do that is I can like just constrain it maybe to spine 2. That's the 0 group. Constraint and click OK. Now the problem is, because we haven't set up those bind pre-matrices just yet, if we pull it along, we're going to get double transforms, which isn't great. So to counter that, we use that bind pre-matrices method, because what happens when you create a skin cluster is it's something that's sort of like behind the scenes. Let's open up breathing skin cluster. So there's a bunch of, do we want to expand it down? Show all attributes. So these bind pre-matrices, these are actually set when you create a skin cluster. All of Maya's tools sort of set these for you behind the scenes. So when you create a skin cluster, your joints get hooked into a matrix, I believe. Yeah, like there's a bunch of other things like influence color, lock weights, and things like that. But the main idea is like, in order for the influences to like affect the skin cluster, they go into this matrix section. But in order for it to remember like the original position, it needs sort of like that information as well, and that's what goes into the bind pre-matrices. So what it sort of says, like the world space matrix at that time when it was bound is put into the bind pre-matrix, and the matrix of the joint that actually moves around is put into the matrix section. So what we do is we use that world inverse information on the 0 group above the joint to feed into that bind pre-matrices. So it sort of like updates it as it's moving around. And then it only calculates the offset then because of that, because it's sort of like it's following along. So we need to make sure, the only thing we need to do is make sure that the root joint it's 0 in the matrix and 1, the breathing joint is 1 in the matrix. Just need to make sure those orders are the same. So let's add. This will work properly in a game engine. No, unfortunately, Lucas, this won't. That's the shitty thing. And I'll explain why in a second. Let me just, this song is strange. Where is this coming from? A bunch of Windows sound effects. Interesting. Distracting the shit out of me. So we need the root joint 0, and we want the breathing 1 second. So we get the world inverse matrix, and we plug that into matrix 0. World inverse matrix. Plug that into the 1 matrix there. So this will be now when this all rotates around and everything. Follows along, it's all relative. Grab the breathing control, and now when we scale this, it's all relative based on the position of it there. So it's essentially like you're cancelling out the space of these joints, because the world inverse matrix of this is like feeding into that prebind matrix, and it knows that this joint, the world, because it's connected, what is it, to the world matrix of the joint? Yeah, the world matrix. And because like they share the same space, like the matrices share the same space or whatnot, and then it doesn't know to offset them. It only offsets them once like you actually move this joint away from like the original position of its of the hierarchy above it. I'm probably explaining this in a roundabout, maybe not entirely accurate way. I'm pretty sure that's how it is though. Matrices always like mushify my mind, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. I'll wait until like somebody comes into chat and says, well, actually that's not how it goes. That's not how matrices work. Can do that at whatever we want, and then breathing in, out, in, out. So Lucas asked a good question, or was basically asking, will this work in game engines? And unfortunately the answer is no. And the reason is pretty straightforward. If we look at the weighting of everything, right? So in the spine skin cluster, the weighting is pretty obvious. We got weighting here for every single joint, 1, 2, 3. But now we have a skin cluster on top. We can see where the issue is. We've got a root joint, which is overlaid on pretty much everything, because again, you need that like weighting information to make everything not like immediately snap to the origin point. And we've got the breathing joint on top of it. So basically, there is no way for us to bake this skin cluster down, because game engines need one skin cluster only. Like if you were working with multiple skin clusters, I think you can bake them down through like ng skin tools. There might be a way to do it in here as well. We can maybe check that after this. But as you can see, like if we were to bake down this skin cluster on top to spine skin cluster, it would basically be overwriting everything and it wouldn't really work. The only way to get this working in game engine would be to like set up the equivalent of a second skin cluster with various connections and everything, which I don't think... There's probably a way to do it, but it wouldn't be straightforward enough. So this is a really cool technique to utilize if you're working primarily in like films or TVCs, commercials, episodic, things like that. As long as it's not really being exported to a game engine or whatever, that's probably fine. The alternative is you set it up as, or you cache it out and you bring that cache into a game engine. So you do all the animation in Maya, cache it out, bring the cache in, and then you don't worry about animating it again in Unreal. So yeah, I was actually wondering, like, is there a way to bake skin clusters down now? Skin. Bake deformation to skin weights. Nope. Skin weights, mirror, copy, smooth skin, hammer. Doesn't look like it. Because it would be cool if you could just say, like, yeah, I want this one above. I want all the weights just to be copied down, like, through all these hierarchies to the others. But yeah, like a way this could theoretically work for like a game engine would be if you had, like, you skin all the body geometry up, and then if you have a face rig, and this is useful for like working in Maya as well, if you have a face rig that you want to be able to like toggle on and off, and you're not using blend shapes, you got a joint base setup or whatever. So rather than having the skin clusters in one skin cluster, you skin the face to a separate skin cluster above. And if animation's ever like, well, we want to turn off that skin cluster to save a few FPS or whatever, make the rig a little bit faster as we work, you can set up a toggle just to turn that skin cluster above off. Because you can still have like a root joint or whatever. You just need to make sure that root joint never moves. It always stays in the same position to like, so you don't get double transforms. And then you could, bake that down to an export for the rig at some point using like NG or something like that. Could use a spine 0 joint as the root joint on the second skinning. I'm assuming you can use same joints in multiple skin clusters. I wonder what happens when you do that, actually. Oh boy, let's zero out everything. Can I just select that, skin, bind skin?
Slow down, sir.
Whoop.
You're going to give yourself
Hey, Jesse
skin failure.
FK, welcome, buddy. How you doing? Thank you very much for the resubscribe for the second month. Yeah, we're just currently going through some of the new multiple skin cluster workflows in Maya, which are actually pretty useful, It's nice that it's finally in here, and it kind of gives us a way to maybe explain it a bit better to people who don't have sort of their own unique workflow set up. Am I going to get double transforms now? Yes. Yeah, so that's the problem there. Because now we've got like skinning for the spine, that's spine 0 in spine skin cluster. And because we've got it in skin cluster 1 as well, it's like that transformation information is being sent out twice. So we get that double transformation. But you can use the same joints from the looks of it in multiple skin clusters on the same mesh. So you got that going for you. Yeah, because what you can basically use... I gotta stop saying basically so much. Yeah. The way you sort of, like a more traditional workflow for like setting up a face rig is you sort of have all the blend shapes at origin and you feed those in ahead of the skin cluster in the input hierarchy. So like all those blend shapes execute first, then the skin cluster executes second. So like the face contorts into place and then moves around. You could use a second skin cluster in place of like that kind of blend shape hierarchy. You still have everything like at origin. It all moves around. All the controls move around with the face, but in effect the joints at the origin. And you use that as sort of like in place of a blend shape. So I can maybe kind of show off an idea of how that would work. Maybe we get Mr. Rex. What's the time, by the way? Oh, it's 11:30. I'll probably just go for a little bit. I'll tell you what, actually. I'll get one more cup of tea, and I'll kind of go through this idea for a face workflow in a bit more detail after I do that. So I'll be back in 1 second, folks. Don't go anywhere. And we're back. Oh, I see. Could you use a node to turn on and off the calculation of the root joint on the skinning? You could use it to turn on and off the skin cluster itself. I'll show you how to set that up just in a sec. That's very neat, actually. Did they add that in 2024? Yes. So, Jesse, yeah, we've been going through some of the new cool features that 2024 has. It's actually it's got some decent stuff in there. I feel it's a lot of stuff that's been like, you know, a decade, a long time coming sort of thing. But I think it's sort of bringing more, how would you say, like stuff that is, I guess, more standard at like bigger studios and giving it to people who maybe don't have that kind of like experience or knowledge with that kind of setup, right? Like, this whole concept of like multiple skin clusters is something like people have known out about before, and like I've talked about it on streams before and how to set it up and everything. But, you know, outside of like knowing somebody who's sort of like explained this to people or like taught people how to go through the chains and like have multiple skin clusters affecting a single mesh, like you might not know about it, but now it's like, okay, it's in the public knowledge. Have they finally added more math nodes? They have indeed, yeah. Let me see, where were they? We can show the list here. We got, yeah, a whole bunch of good stuff. Yeah, see, exactly. Like, you think like, oh, have they finally added a bunch? And then you're like, whoa, they have, yeah. Hell yes. Yeah, like I said, it's like a decade coming, but, you know, better late than never. There's also some cool stuff they've added in the retopology tool, which has been getting some love in the recent versions of Maya from like 2022 onwards. I think it's really good for rigging workflows because it just like allows you to create like a really quick mesh that you can skin to if you're working with like a decimated scan or something and you don't have final topology just yet. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. I think it's still going to be a while until studios like update to it. I still think a lot of studios are just going to avoid updating because they don't want to, like, some studios are still so super far behind. They just don't want to make that jump from 2020 to 2022 because you have to use Python 3 and everything. But yeah, that's one thing I've learned. Like, I can't go too far ahead in versions of Maya because a lot of the studios that I freelance for or do work for are still in like 2020 or 2019 or whatever. So I've sort of like learned how to work from 2022 backwards sometimes. It's been a little bit of growing pains, but got a special shout out to Loic, who's not in chat, but he helped me get some backwards compatibility going between Python 3, Python 2 stuff. So many studios still in 2018. Yeah, like, I mean, I get it. Like, it's stable, and you want to make sure, like, shit doesn't go south when you're in the middle of a big project or whatever, but, like, that's a lot of versions behind, guys. Currently using 2023, run into issues with outsource. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's sort of like the inverse for me. Like, I am the outsource and I run into issues because I'm using a more advanced version of Maya compared to the studios that I'm working for, you know? Yes. Oh boy, what the fuck was that? What the hell was that? Oh, was it the home button? Oh yeah, I hate that thing so much. Let's bring in back Mr. Rex. Why is there a bunch of anime characters talking? What is this? Sugoi. Even that super bad for Coda 2018 uses Python 2. No. So Lucas, the first version of Maya to use Python 3 was 2022. You could actually isn't that super bad for coders? Yeah, well, I mean, like, the thing is, if you're in an established pipeline and you're using Python 2, everything probably works, right? And to convert your code over to Python 3 is going to bring up a lot of issues. It's something like, it's a band-aid you have to rip off at some point, but when you're like, you know, working on 50 different films or whatever, like it's hard to just update a full studio workflow or something like that. It is possible. There's definitely tools out there which help convert things over, but there's like always like one or two issues that come up. So I get it. It's just like the benefits of going from one to the other may not be high enough to sort of justify it yet, you know, just depending on the workloads of studios and things. Yeah, because the big difference, it was like, I was talking about this earlier, it's like the difference of going from 2015 to 2016 when parallel evaluation came out. Like it was a big improvement, but you had to rewire or rework your, like basically build your rigs in a different way to make use of it. And some studios didn't want to do that. Like, yeah, some studios I worked at in the past, yeah, they were like stuck in like super old versions of Maya because a lot of their custom tools didn't work in newer versions of Maya. Similarly, I see the same thing sort of happening between Maya 20 and 2022 because that's the Python 2, Python 3 switch, and also because deformers are built in a different way now thanks to component tagging and things like that. So, yeah, you can't send a 2022 rig back to 2020 because all the deformers are different and like all of them break. Before I quit my last job, the last thing we did was convert to Python 3, and I was actually surprised how easy it was. I think many people are scared of potential problems, so yeah, honestly, like all of my code, Jesse, is basically fine between Python 2 and Python 3. The only issue is f-strings. I use f-strings. I love f-strings, but there is a Python 3 to Python 2 converter, and also like a Python 3 to Python 2. Python 2 to Python 3, I should say. Like, they go both ways. But it came out before f-strings were a thing, so I was like trying to convert all my 3 to 2 to like work for a company once, and then I realized, oh, the one thing that I need it to convert, basically everything else I do works the same in both versions of Python except the f-strings. So I was like, why isn't it converting this stuff? Oh, because f-strings came out after this tool was made, and it can't convert it. So I had to use something called like future f-strings, which was a whole fucking thing to set up. I had to like message Loic, who's he's like totally on point with all this stuff, and he helped me get it working. But it was like such a huge fucking issue, you know. Would you be surprised if I said last year I worked on a project that still used Maya 2015? Honestly, Fake Vivid, I would not be surprised by that at all. I imagine the animators probably hate everybody who is on that project, but, you know, if they've got license, if they bought like a bunch of licenses for that and don't want to upgrade as well, and all their rigs are built in a certain way, then like, it's somewhat understandable, I suppose. What was I going to do? I was going to create like... It's going to be like a very rudimentary... okay, actually, let's do it this way. Do a few spines. Spine 0. Spine 1. Spine chest. And then we'll do something a little bit different. So create a single joint. Can position that like something on the face like there. We can call this hip tweaker, and let's do the same thing. We'll put a root at the origin. Gladnox, welcome Sam. How you doing? This is actually is it a late stream? Oh man, like this is the thing I get confused when daylight saving swaps over if things become later or earlier for people. Like, did my stream start early for you guys this week or later? Or do you just mean like I'm going late? Because like normally I'd be asleep by this time. Started an hour later. Oh, damn. I thought it was going to be earlier. So, this is why I hate daylight saving, because I'm like, oh, I know when things start or whatever. And then it's always the opposite of what I think it is. I'm like, I'm sure I've definitely done the calculations. Yeah. Ay. I'm pretty sure I posted in Discord, oh, I'm starting early tonight. No, it's the opposite. I'm starting late. So ignore that post. That's why you could watch the stream. Yeah, so, like, yeah, daylight savings is now over in Victoria, the state I live in Australia. And will be over until October, I believe. April to October. So, got a significant portion of time with some later streams, I suppose. Used to usually start, like, 11:30 my time, and it was... oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so we got that spine set up. Let's call this... oh my god, why isn't it letting me click? Come on. Goddamn mouse. Spine, skin cluster. Okay, so maybe... what's the best way to show? Okay, let's do this with blend shapes first. So... grab this. Wrap. Lovely. We're going to call this lip tweak. Hide that. So, the way you sort of like create face rigs, or at least a kind of pretty standard way of creating face rigs in studios, is use blend shapes. So you can call this like a face blend shape. And we can... so one thing we want to make sure is this blend shape is evaluating ahead of the skin cluster. The reason we want that to happen is because if we animate the skin cluster and everything, it's currently evaluating first, and then if we go in and activate this target on the blend shape, it's going to overwrite what's happening on the previous deformers, and it's going to pull it into place, which is not what we want. We want basically the shape to activate first, and then the skin cluster to deform everything in addition to that afterwards. So that's a really easy fix. All we need to do is just turn the input, go into all inputs, and move this underneath the first one. So we can see a refresh face blend shape activates before the skin cluster in the deformer stack. And you can see now it doesn't pull everything to place. So if we think about this, like deformer by deformer, so we turn the skin cluster off. This is what's happening. You know, the face activates first, so it's at the origin point, and then the skin cluster, which has been moved physically around in space, so we've grabbed these joints and we've moved them off to wherever they need to go. That activates second, and it pulls all those joints sort of like as an offset in relation to this. So blend shapes are pretty good for creating face rigs. The problem is if you have like a live connection blend shape, it doesn't work with parallel evaluation. Or it doesn't evaluate on the GPU or whatever, and therefore like rigs the FPS flatline when you use a system like this. If you're using like cached blend shapes, where you like set up all the targets and then you like delete the targets, so it's all like cached on the actual geometry. So like if I was to get rid of this lip tweak geometry, this is now like cached into the blend shape itself. This performs well on the GPU, whereas if you have that active connection, especially to like a more complicated face rig or whatever, that slows your performance down massively. So it's not always optimal to have like a face blend shape system. So theoretically, you can use like skin clusters in a similar manner, like having multiple tiers. So you can like instantly turn off, like I can turn off the blend shapes here. In a similar fashion, we can have a skin cluster above everything and turn that on and off if we need. So let's set that up just to sort of show a similar thing. So similar to what we had before. So I've got like this lip tweaker up here or whatever. Root, let's grab these and let's bind that. Already a skin cluster on the model, let's add a new one. We can call this like face skin cluster. So let's take a look at the weighting. Let's do the root and the lip tweaker. So we can like roughly skin that up. Smooth that out a bit. So now if we grab that joint, it sort of like manipulates the skin cluster like this. So as long as those joints don't move, they sort of like stay at the origin. In a similar fashion, we can like, you know, move the character off into space. And because the lip tweakers in that haven't moved, you can just sort of like manipulate them like so at the origin point, and it's gonna like deform everything like so. In fact, you might want that one to evaluate first. What is this song? God damn. Face skin. Let's evaluate that first, because is this still gonna like offset correctly? Yes. Okay. Cool. So we want that skin cluster in a similar way to evaluate first. So if we turn off like the spine skin cluster, we can see like if we manipulate this joint at the origin, it pulls out, you know, the skin cluster in a very particular way. And then we want the second skin cluster to evaluate afterwards and pull it into like the world space position. If we had this the opposite way around, the relativity of this skin cluster isn't going to work the same way. So if we swap these around again, you can see it changes a little bit. So if I move the lip like outwards, you can see it's sort of like more, it's like pulling in more in world space as opposed to like relative. It should be pulling out in this direction rather than like in world space. And again, if we swap the face to be before instead and do the same thing, it'll pull off in the direction that's expected. So you could have like a bunch of controls set up that follow along with the actual rig, but all the joints are left at like the origin. You connect the translation of those controls into the translation of the joint, so they still remain at the origin, but you know, when you offset those controls, that offset gets fed into the joints. And the nice thing about that is if you don't want this face rig to be on anymore, you just toggle off that skin cluster and that'll be the way to go. This would require a bit of like of baking your skin clusters down in order to like put it into a game engine or whatever. And you would then need those joints to follow around with the face, but like you could sort of work with it in a particular way in Maya to work this way, and then like, you know, you press a button, export it all out or whatever, condense it all down, and you know, different kind of workflow, and it gives you the benefit of like multiple skin clusters and being able to toggle them on and off at the animator's request. So that's why they use those insanely detailed face rigs for AAA games. So I think like certain game face rigs may work in different ways. I think most game face rigs are actually joint based to some degree, but they'll generally do a bunch of blend shapes prior and then bake those blend shapes into skin clusters through something like Dembones or their own internal tools and things like that. Because skin clusters are more performant for game engines. And the more blend shapes you have, I think it kind of like, it makes things evaluate worse. This is like my understanding. Like I'm not as familiar with it, but just from like asking people, there's like a tweet I put a few weeks back that was asking this stuff, and that was like the vibe of stuff I got. So yeah, it seems to be the way like joints are the way to go for game engines. 4 max influences if possible. 8 maybe sometimes if you're like a AAA game with a face or whatever. But yeah, it depends, you know. Depends on the workflow. We use blend shapes only, but if I had been brought on before, I would have vouched to not do it this way. Like, I guess I can sort of, yeah, again, like Jesse says, it depends, right? Like, if you've got a super simple mobile game, and maybe you just want to, like, make a character smile or whatever, like, maybe you just use a blend shape for that because it's easier than setting up way more joints or something. Like, you could probably profile these things to find out which is more optimal and what is nicer, but yeah, I guess if you're a smaller studio, you probably don't have the capacity to do that as much as some bigger places. Is there anything else I wanted to look at? It is midnight here now, so I'll be probably winding down the stream very soon. There was the new math nodes. I'm probably not going to go into them too much. Maybe some of them, just to see like the capacity of them. Min and maxes and normalize. Thanks for joining, Rehards. Catch you next time, buddy. Have a good week. Don't work too hard. Am I? Yes, this is the right one. Oh yeah, the reorder rotation tool. That's cool as well, isn't it? Yeah, that's nice to have. What was I going to do? No, is it noise? Ooh. Does it normalize relative to something? Returns a field whose values at any position are the normalized values of the... Oh, so it'll normalize input vector field. Yeah, these are all like much more complicated math stuff. What else was there? There's normalize. Got like max and min. They seem very bare bones, which is good. They just like do one function and that's it. Not like the multiply divides and things like that, where you just put in something and you get an expected behavior out. So I'm guessing, like with the likes of this, could you plug in like translate X, Y, and Z? It'll have all those attributes. You move them around into a random position. So the highest here would be 6, 7, 6, 3. And let's, I guess, I mean, this is creating a loop, but whatever. It's fine for testing. Output to the max there. Yeah, cool. Oh, that's nice. Oh, man. Yeah, this is really useful. Because I think in order to do something like this before, you had to use like a bunch of mult nodes as well. Or you could use like, was it the blend? Not blend two attributes. Blend combo? Is that combo? Combination shapes, right? Yeah, I think you can feed in multiple things into combo, because these were supposed to be used for like combination shapes. I think who's the rigmarole? Is that Chris Lesage? Yes. I think Chris Lesage has a good post on like how to do this the long way. Min and max nodes, yeah, here we go. So I'll post like this old one. So if you don't follow Chris Lesage's stuff as well, his stuff's really good. A lot of information on his blog and just on his Twitter and stuff like that. But you can sort of see like in this blog post, like in order to create like a min and max node, just the sort of like the amount of nodes you had to use prior. And now you can just use this one max or min node in order to do the same thing. Super useful. And yes, Lucas, I will post the documentation. This is the Maya. That's the rigging one. So yeah, if you access this on the left-hand side, it's the what's new in Maya 2024. You can just like select from there and find out all the new stuff. Yeah, okay, so I'm pretty sure in my documentation somewhere, do I have like... Dragon. Oh, that's probably a bunch of... Oh yeah, because I've got advanced skeleton stuff. Where was I using min and max in my scripts? Somewhere. Utility nodes. I'm pretty sure at some point in my scripts I was basically recreating Crystal Sarge's node structure. But why was I using it? Was it for combo shapes? What character? It might be one I can't show. Combo. Points on curves, matrices. There was definitely some place where I was using the structure to create like a min and max system, so I'm definitely going to update to that at some point. What else do we have? Just got a bunch of, oh, power, that's good, pi. Clamp, ooh, clamp range? Ooh, clamp range is good. So you could use that instead of like, what do you call them? Like attribute restrictions. What do you call them? Limit information. That's you could use it in place of that potentially. What's modulo? Input. Oh, modulus. Okay, well that's beyond me. That sounds like math nerd shit, guys. Less than. Does this provide a true output? Like a 0 or a 1? Interesting. Oh yeah, there's like a, you can do like knots and ands and stuff. Cool, okay, yeah. This is gonna allow for a lot more noodling and everything. Mod is love, mod is life, at least when you try and instance stuff in a pattern. Oh, I see, okay. Is it like a randomizer kind of thing? Rotate vector. Oh, interesting. That'd be good for offsets and stuff. Round. Oh, round is gonna be great. Are you able to specify how many points it can round to? Does that know what it does? Round Maya. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go into the dictionary, into the documentation, because typing in round Maya doesn't really help. Yeah, anything else on the list I wanted to check out? Yeah, but I mean, it's been a fairly laid-back stream tonight, guys. I'm just kind of like casually wanting to go through all this stuff and just see what was up. I've also been extremely busy this week, so didn't really have anything planned to go. But next week, I think I'll be back into doing more standard rig stuff. I've actually spent some time reworking my naming conventions. I think I mentioned I was starting that like last week, and I made some progress since then, actually, on good approaches to that. And it actually hasn't been as painful as I thought it would be. Because my stuff is sort of laid out based on dictionaries and things, it's easy enough to find and update existing name strings. And I've got some like script-based methods of generating names more consistently now. So if I want to go back and change the naming conventions again at some point, it's easy enough just to like find where that script is, maybe toggle around some of the arguments or whatever, the variables, and like change the names based on that. So I'll maybe go through that in a bit more detail next week. It's basically me trying to eliminate a lot of junk information in strings again, like this isn't really... The naming conventions aren't hugely important to anybody else but riggers or me. It's more of like a visual clarity thing for when you go into the rig and you look in a certain area, like, oh, I know what's going on. And I think I mentioned at several points during streams, like, man, my naming conventions were getting really long and hard to work with and everything. So it was like time to finally rip again. It's like one of those ripping the band-aid off situations where it's just like, I need to fucking commit and just do it because I know it's not good and it needs to be better. And I need to just refactor a bunch of stuff. So no, it gives you the rest value, like 2 mod 3, 2 or 5 mod, because when 2 or 5 is divided by, like you can say, I will trust you on this one, Sam. The way I learn about stuff is I have to like pick it up and tinker with it myself. I'm like Anakin Skywalker. I'm such a tinkerer. Like people can explain things to me, but I just need to pick stuff up and just like fuck with it in order to actually understand how it goes. So, yeah. I assume it's very cool. Alrighty, folks. On that note, we'll probably be wrapping up tonight. So thank you to everybody who's joined. Hope you learned a bit. In fact, what I might do, I'm kind of keen to just like make a quick little tutorial video on the multiple skin cluster workflow and how to get those bind pre-matrices set up. Just like, so I've got maybe like a 5 or 10 minute video to upload to YouTube that people can just refer to because it's like a really useful thing to work with. So I might look at doing that at some point. Not on stream, but just, you know, if you're keen on doing that kind of stuff and you don't want to refer to the stream, I might try and generate something for that fairly soon. But yes, thanks to the people who resubscribed tonight. And I will catch all of yous next week. Probably same time, the later time. As always, if you're new and you haven't joined up, join up to our Discord, !Discord in chat. If you aren't already following me, follow me on socials. But as always, don't work too hard, guys. Love you all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next week. See ya!